COVID was, for the restaurant industry, one of the biggest detrimental incident. You know, banks, they want to lend you money when you don't need it, and when you need it, they turn your hand. Trying to find trusting lender, being able to do the basic things where you communicate, you ask a question, they get back to you, they explain it to you in the way that you're going to understand it. Trying to come up with that is very hard. For example, Cardiff right now was very helpful, and quite frankly, they've been, any questions I've had, they get to the point in a very quick, timely manner, and that's all you can ask for. And at the end of that, you make the judgment whether you want to pull the trigger or not. And so my experience so far with Cardiff has been great. My name is Kenji Aoshima, owner of Robataya Oton. This restaurant's been here a little over 20 years, but since I've taken over, we're on our 7th year, just a little bit off of Convoy. This restaurant came to fruition when I met my catcher in Japan. I used to play professional baseball in Japan, and he was my catcher, I was a pitcher. This was back 30 years ago when I was about 150 pounds instead of 250 pounds right now, right? So about 9 years ago or so, he had decided that he wanted to move to San Diego, that he wanted to have his own place. And so we had a group of my buddies, including the original owner here, that were all kind of baseball related as well, but wanted to help and fulfill my partner's dream. This past year in August, late August, from a sudden stroke, he passed away. In memories of him, to keep the torch going, I've decided to get full board myself and get back into the kitchen and whatnot. Keep the dream alive. And then therefore, I went and hired some more chefs. The chef I have now, just by coincidence, was another guy that I used to play baseball with 20 years ago. It's strange how the community and how human relationships kind of, you get to reconnect and do things like that. So not just the food, the atmosphere, but absolutely the people, is important here. Yeah, I've lived in Japan for a total of 8 years of my 51 years of life. Not all consecutively, but this restaurant here, the actual original owner, who actually for a short time was a part of the ownership when I took over, wanted to bring something authentic from Japan here to San Diego. And I think this built is very unique, a little bit probably early in its times. But now with the popularity of all the tourists and people going over to Japan, they're definitely excited when they come here, and it brings back the good memories and stuff like that on their vacation. So. It's a process, but obviously, it comes down to the chefs and their skills and their talent and what we want to showcase. And so over the years, obviously there's been rotations of chefs and whatnot. Currently we're trying to promote a little bit more of the Japanese fish. We just don't want to be that location where it's just the hoopla of what it looks like. The food's got to match it. The authenticity, obviously, with the food that we make, needs to complement the built out of our restaurant, and so that's what we've been working hard at doing. They are from Japan. They have been here in San Diego for a little bit. Yeah, they're all Japanese. This is actually my partner that passed. He was actually played for Team Japan when he was in high school. That's also his, and that's the team that we both played on. Yeah, it's Shidaks. His was the team name. I would say majority yes, but not necessarily. As you can see I like eating, and I've been around a lot of parts of Japan, and so I do try to bring in different tastes. And then we have a pretty good sake menu right now, which it's all over Japan as well, from north to south. So Japan is about the size of California, the actual length in itself as well. When you go from top to bottom, whether it's the fragrance or the savoriness or whatnot is a little bit stronger or prominent in the northern side. Why? Because it's much colder. And as you go down south, it's a lot warmer. And so it becomes a little bit more light. Now, depending on the dish and what we're trying to serve. For example, soy sauce, we're using a little bit more of the Tokyo style, or the Kanto region, which is the Tokyo area. Fukuoka is another place really down south where I have my own business in the fish part, where their soy sauce tends to be sweeter. So we'll incorporate a little bit of that kind of taste into our dishes as well. The competition is fierce around here. The biggest thing is providing good food. And providing good food means we want to be unique as well. Not just anywhere you go, you have the same, types of fish, varieties of fish, or even the method or serving the fish. So everything here, we try to be a little bit different than the others. For example, our salmon. The normal salmon use is the Atlantic salmon, farm raised, Canada, parts of Norway, or even Scotland. We try to use a sockeye salmon that's cultivated at the base of Mount Fuji. It's not even on the ocean, but it uses the spring water. The Mount Fuji is beautiful for its snow cap, on top of its mountain. The runoff from that goes into the pool where they're cultivating these salmon. As far as I know, we're the only ones that use that kind of salmon. When you say salmon, there's probably about 20 to 30 different varieties of salmon that can be eaten in a sushi restaurant. That's what we're trying to separate ourselves from. Even though we serve the same salmon, one's an Atlantic salmon Canada, which probably about 80% of the restaurants use. There's other, obviously, New Zealand and other parts of the world cultivated salmon. We're using Japanese Fuji sockeye salmon. Just with the salmon itself, we're trying to distinguish ourselves a little bit different from the other restaurants. Yeah. My family background, is in the sea urchin business. My pops back in the 60s was one of the original exporters out of Santa Barbara that put uni on the map in the West Coast back in the 60s. Now, my mom and dad went their separate ways. My mom opened up her shop in Baja, which is about an hour and a half away from here. And she was the first to export raw sushi out of Mexico. All said and done, I was born into a world of uni, sea urchin. So that being said, here at the restaurant, I provide the top 5% of what we produce at our factory, and use it not only for just the sushi in itself as sea urchin, but we are creating a wide variety of urchin dish that other restaurants do not have. When we first took over, this place had a menu the size of an encyclopedia. So what we wanted to do was simplify it a little bit and focus on the dish that we wanted to keep from the previous restaurant or the ownership, and then instill our own unique twist to the menu. Upon doing so, it's taken its course, and we're getting there, and we're still trying to work on more seasonal and continue the uniqueness where others restaurants aren't offering. The main staple of the items that we're selling, we want to keep, and so we're just making sure that the taste is there, right, to hit that mark every single time. You mentioned COVID, and so COVID was, for the restaurant industry, one of the biggest detrimental, an incident. Banks, they want to lend you money when you don't need it, and when you need it, they turn your hand so quickly. Trying to find trusting lender, and what is trust, right? It's being able to do the basic things where you communicate, you ask a question, they get back to you. If you have a question, they explain it to you in the way that you're going to understand it, not try to pass over stuff in the fine print, things like that. And so trying to come up with that trustworthy partner in a lender is very hard. And these days, you can almost throw a dart, somewhere, and it's gonna land on somebody's a lender or a broker. And you have so many different spectrums of people and how they do business, right? And so, for example, Cardiff right now was very helpful, and quite frankly, they've been, any questions I've had, they get to the point in a very quick, timely manner. And that's all you can ask for. And at the end of that, you make the judgment whether you want to pull the trigger or not. And so my experience so far with Cardiff has been great. I myself was, quote unquote, on the investing side. I did the back office stuff, the bookkeeping and whatnot. And my partner that passed was the operating partner that was running the restaurant. A lot of misconception of people going into the restaurant business is, hey, you get in, you provide good food, good service, it's automatic, you're making money, and it's just cha-ching, cha-ching. But it really isn't so. You really almost have to go into it expecting to lose money for 1 or 2 years. And you have to have the finances to be able to support that. And it's because the dishes you may think are great and fantastic, but until you introduce it to the public and they accept it and deem it as this is worth paying money, that takes time. And in our restaurant, as long as our restaurant's been here, in the 7 years that I've been taking over, half of our clientele is still first timers. They're still finding out that, hey, there's a place like this here in San Diego. Now with social media and there's so much more variety of methods, but back then there wasn't. Times are getting better, but now it's which platform do you use to advertise and whatnot. That's one. The constant in and out of, like, for example, servers. You would wish to have a server and they remain loyal to you and they stay with you and throughout the years. They don't just grow on trees. You have to educate them of what we're trying to do and how to sell that. But we all understand that they have their own lives too. Some of them are students, some of them are housewives. They have their own life that they're living. They're part-timers. Their scheduling or whatever's happening in their life dictates whether they stay or they don't stay. Obviously, you have that kind of a rotation in and out, and sometimes it's ludicrous at times where I'll lose 3 or 4 all at the same time, and whether it's it is what it is type of deal, but there's a lot of frustration and challenges within that with the personnel. Equipment, yeah, with the technology and whatnot, you expect them to have a lifetime, warranty and running, when you most need it, something breaks down. And those aren't, quick fixes or cheap either. So, there's so many challenges that the most public doesn't see in this industry of, what goes on and the preparation that goes on to provide the dish and the service and whatnot. Yeah, it isn't as easy and a quick money-making scheme as everybody thinks. No, it's just that I'd like to reiterate that we're trying to do something different here, keep the authenticity, but we'd like for our customers to come in and challenge us. I don't need this, the sunshine blowing up my butt and telling us, oh, you're great, you're great. If there's something we'd like that we could fix and do better, I'd absolutely like to know about it. And especially when our guests sit at the sushi bar, we want them to interact with our chefs and to see if they can come up with something and keep them on their toes, not just being force-fed on something that we're trying to push. I believe firmly that it's a two-way street with anything, in any relationship. In this case, as the owner, I'd like to have that open communication with our customers and see how we could do things better.